Welcome to English Myths Explained, because some of the most common rules in English and English education were invented, exaggerated, or simply wrong. Let's get into it.
Every grammar teacher says the same thing. A sentence must have a subject and a verb. Without both, what you have written is a fragment, an incomplete sentence, and it is wrong. Today, we look at whether this is actually true. And the answer is no, not always. Sometimes a sentence fragment is exactly the right choice. The rule is real in one important context. In early writing education, insisting on complete sentences prevents certain patterns of unintentional error. Young writers sometimes produce fragments by accident, cutting off a thought before it is finished, writing a subordinate clause as if it were a complete sentence, because he was tired, which arrived last week. These are fragments. They feel like sentences but are grammatically incomplete, because they depend on something that was never provided. The rule exists to catch these genuine errors. But the rule, applied absolutely, prohibits something that excellent writers use deliberately and effectively. Look at how fragments work in practice. He opened the door. Silence. The fragment creates impact that a full sentence cannot. She had worked for 10 years toward this moment. And then, nothing. The fragments enact the blankness of the experience. Was it the right decision? Probably not. But there it was. The brevity of "but there it was," as a complete thought carries weight precisely because it stands alone. Sentence fragments appear in the work of virtually every major English writer who writes in a contemporary style. They appear in quality journalism, in advertising, in speeches, in the most carefully crafted professional communication. The American writer Joan Didion built much of her distinctive prose rhythm on deliberate fragments. Hemingway used them, Orwell used them. They are not a sign of poor writing. In the hands of a writer who understands what they are doing, they are a precision tool for emphasis, rhythm, and emotional impact. The distinction that actually matters is not fragment versus complete sentence. It is intentional versus unintentional. An unintentional fragment, one that occurs because the writer lost track of the grammar, is a genuine error that makes writing harder to read. An intentional fragment, one that is chosen because it creates a specific effect that a complete sentence cannot, is a legitimate stylistic device. The test is not, does this have a subject and a verb? The test is, does this communicate what I want it to communicate as effectively as possible? Sentence fragments are a legitimate stylistic device used deliberately by major writers, journalists, and skilled communicators. The rule against them is a useful teaching tool for avoiding accidental, incomplete sentences. Applied absolutely, it prohibits something valuable. The distinction that matters is intentional versus unintentional. Use fragments when they serve the writing. Subscribe to Fluent Daily for more.